If your bronzers often make you feel like this,
Girl, look how orange you fucking look, girl.
you came to the right place. That is an iconic Drag Race moment, but it doesn't feel very iconic to be walking around with orange bronzer. You feel like you have Cheeto dust on your face. I don't think anyone loves that. If that's a common scenario for you, same. That's why I wanted to make this video of my top 10 favorite non-orange, cool tone, neutral, rosy bronzers of 2024. I have tried, I don't think every single bronzer that exists, but I've tried a ton of them, and a lot of them frankly do not work for my skin tone and they pull orange. So these are my favorite, more recent discoveries of the year. Some of them you may have never heard me talk about before. So I am super excited to get into this very helpful guide, swatches of course. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a variety of tones, formulas, and finishes here, so there's gonna be something for everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and start with one you've probably heard me talk about before, just to get it out of the way. It is my RMS Beauty Beachwalk Betty bronzer. You probably already know that I love this bronzer. It is such a beautiful, neutralish tone. It never pulls orange on me. This is one that I have on today. If you've never tried an RMS blush or bronzer formula, they have this like gel powder finish, so they never look powdery or textured, and the shimmer is really fine and it gives you a glow. Like, it makes you look super healthy without looking, like I mentioned, too dry or like you have a lot of powder on your face. Truly a phenomenal product. I absolutely love this and use it basically every day. Sometimes I try to switch it up, but the tone is amazing, so they really nailed it. They're offering, I believe, buy one get one 50% off on all their eye, lip, and cheek products on RMS Beauty for a holiday sale currently. I will link it below with the details if you're interested, but you know my love for this, it's awesome. Swatch wise, by the way, I will be building the products up just to show you the full opacity, but I will also make sure to comment on how they actually apply. So this product I would say is medium pigmentation. It's not super sheer, so you do have to be a little bit careful with applying it, but it's also not an extremely pigmented formula. Let me also just quickly mention my favorite brushes for application before we move on. So I would say I have 3 go-tos for bronzer application. First off, if you feel like you always over apply bronzer, I recommend a stipple brush. These are duo fiber brushes. This is from LUXIE. It's the duo fiber stippling brush, the 508. So a duo fiber means that it's a little bit more dense at the bottom here, but this top is really sort of sparse. This is a slightly bigger brush. I usually use something a little bit smaller for bronzer, so I would say make sure you're using this with a slightly more like sheer product, because it can just cover a bigger area than you want it to, but it doesn't pick up a ton of product or hold on to a ton of product because it's more sparse. So this could be really helpful for those of you who just always end up over applying. And then the other 2 I would say I definitely reach for a little bit more because I like a smaller bronzer brush is the LUXIE 504 large angle. This is just a classic synthetic angled brush. Anything that looks like this, again, I prefer something smaller. It just makes sure that it doesn't go outside of the borders that I want it to. Maybe if you have a larger face and you need like something to really cover the areas, you could go for something bigger, but I really like these smaller ones. And then I also really love the RÈPHR 18 brush. These more domed shape ones are so great for the cheeks because this, like, it sort of comes to a point here. It will apply a little more densely there, but then the rest of the brush, when you sort of work it in, will diffuse the rest of the colors. So a lot of great options here depending on how you like to apply your bronzer and the type of formulas that you're using. I think these are all great brush options. The LUXIE brushes, by the way, I've had for so long and they're still like brand new. RèPHR is a little bit new to me, but some good options I'll link below. Next up is actually a very recent new launch from What's Up Beauty. These are their Cheeque Terre bronzers. They also came out with blushes. This is the shade 10 Light. It's a baked and pressed powdered bronzer. I saw this shade and I was really excited. First off, their packaging is always stunning. You open it up and you actually have these swirls of different colors within the bronzer. So you have this very light yellow tone. There's sort of a mid-tone brown, very little bit of it. And then there's also these purple streaks, which I saw that and I was like, that is awesome because it means it's going to cool down the bronzer shade when you mix your brush in and get all those different colors. This stippling brush would be such a good one to apply this to mix all those little veins together. This formula wise is, I don't think it's like completely matte. I'm hesitant to call this a completely matte finish because it almost has a satiny look to it. and it is a very sheer product, which I also love in a bronzer because it's going to prevent you from over applying. And this tone is also beautiful. I'm going to build it up just to show you. It does lean like a little bit more rosy tone. It's such a beautiful shade. I feel like the RMS one always looks a little bit orange on my hand, but I never really apply it in that kind of opacity. This one was such a fun new discovery, and I'm really impressed with the shade that they came out with. Especially nowadays, if you're making a bronzer range, I feel like there should be good options for all shades, and this is such a good one. It doesn't lean orange. It definitely has more of that rosy neutrality to it, and it's just such a beautiful finish. Again, I hesitate to call it matte because it looks so satiny and silky on the skin, and it just applies really nicely. Another more neutral rosy bronzer is something that was released this year from NYX, which are their Buttermelt bronzers, and this is the shade Buttercup, which is their lightest shade. They do also have some more interesting looking shade options that look a little bit more neutral. I have yet to try. My one caveat with this is that it's scented. I really wish it didn't have a scent. I would use it so much more. If you don't mind scent, it smells like Physicians Formula butter bronzer. It just has like this tropical scent to it. It's a really beautiful, creamy, slightly shimmery, just like butter bronzer. Like, I get why they call it a butter bronzer because it really is a smooth applying product. And when you swatch it, it almost feels like a cream. It's just that kind of formula. And I would say this is almost more of a mediumly pigmented bronzer, but because the shade is so light, it doesn't show up very harshly. I really love a super light bronzer if your skin tone is similar to mine. They just match sort of the intensity of our skin a lot better. Using lighter products and more sheer products just usually works a lot better for us. So if you just have these pigmented bronzers that are pulling way too harsh on you, try one of these options out. So here is the NYX Buttercup. Out of all three of these, it has the most, it's almost like a rosy, it's not orange, but it definitely has a warm rosy look to it. It almost gives you that like more sort of like sunburnt, beachy kind of really bronzy look. If you're looking to just add a lot of dimension to your skin, don't love the scent of it. Everything else I really do enjoy. I will say this looked more like true cool toned online, but I still think it's a really beautiful shade option, especially from the drugstore, and the formula feels really luxurious. Hopefully you can see that slight glow that it gives you as well. Moving along, let's actually hop into some cream bronzers. I haven't mentioned this product in a very long time. This is from Weis, and this is their Dazzling bronzer. Now this shade, just right off the bat, doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be a nice, cool, neutral, non-orange bronzer, but if you look closer at it, it does have a very like yellowish bronzy base to it, and it does have this gold shimmer in it, which for me usually never is something that I like. But what's so nice about this cream is if you've never tried a Weis cream product, they're a bit drier, but once you sort of like warm it up on your finger, it gives you a really nice even application. What's so nice about this that maybe you'll be able to see as I'm applying it is it really isn't a super pigmented product. So sometimes creams can be really helpful in that way, where they diffuse really evenly and they just don't deposit a lot of pigment like a powder can very easily. And yeah, like I mentioned, they're a bit stiffer, they're a bit drier, but for me that equals more longevity. I don't feel like my hair sticks to it. So this is something that I feel like is a little hidden gem, and I haven't talked about a ton, so I really want to pull it out and to mention it in this video. You can see compared to these that are a little bit more rosy, this offers that slightly more yellowy bronze if that's the tone you find a little bit more flattering. And like I mentioned, even with those gold shimmers, I usually don't like gold shimmer at all on my face. I think it looks really beautiful, and it just diffuses to be a very bronzy, glowy, beautiful cream bronzer look. And ignore how messy mine is, it's well loved. Another cream that I feel like has quite a unique tone to it is the Thrive Causemetics Triple Threat Color Sticks. This is their bronzer in the shade Jan. I really like how light this product is, and it definitely has more of a pretty like yellow toned bronze to it. It almost is a little olivey. I find these shades really flattering on my skin. Instead of pulling orange, I sort of like bronzers that tend to pull a little bit more yellow. It goes with my skin undertone. If you're a fair olive or olive skin in general, I think this would be a really nice flattering one for you. This This is definitely more medium pigmentation, like I would say be gingerly when you're applying it, and it gives you like a lot of coverage on the skin as well, so it's another one that just use less of to begin with, but it really will give you that like bronzy look. It has more of a full coverage matte finish to it. You're not really getting a lot of shine to it, so it really is something that you can just use to build color and dimension in your face. I think it really stands out against these other ones because it has that yellow olive tone. Another one to mention I don't have here, but if you really like a yellow olive tone, the Danessa Myricks 01 Vision Cream Contour is like even more yellow olive than this one. But I really like this. It's such a nice formula and it's really easy to apply. You do get a little brush on the end here. I find this far too dense to apply this product with. It just doesn't blend it nicely for me. I would use one of the other brushes. I actually didn't mention one for cream bronzers, but I absolutely love the LUXIE Small Contouring. Just this small domed, again, duo fiber brush. It just blends them in nice and evenly and it doesn't pack on too much product. Another cream bronzer stick that is relatively new to me is the Fenty Beauty Match Sticks. I really do like their powder bronzer in the lightest shade, but I wanted to mention this one just because it's a newer find of mine. It's the Soft Amber 08 shade. I really like this sort of more round applicator. And let me do a swatchy swatch here. I would say this one is definitely similar to the Thrive Causemetics one, but the Thrive one has more of that yellow undertone, and this one I would say is a pretty true like neutral bronzer tone, and it has a similar level of pigment, so it is like more of a medium full pigment. I would say this one diffuses a little bit more not evenly, it just is a little bit less coverage wise compared to the Thrive one that can just like give you a lot of pigment and coverage very quickly. This one's almost a little bit more workable, and like I mentioned, I do like how it has this sort of round applicator to it. And finish wise, it is more of a diffused soft matte finish. You're not getting any shimmer, so it's a good one to use to just define and add the dimension back to your skin. Really love the tone of this. I think they also have more of a cool tone shade for more of a contour vibe, but for just nice neutral, more slightly yellow bronzer cream stick, this one is good. And longevity wise, it is very long lasting, it's matte, doesn't move around on the skin. I feel like this is like a good cream. Even if you don't like creams, I think you would like this product. Moving along, if you're looking for bronzers that have a true matte finish, I really love the SURRATT Soleil bronzers. We have Soleil Clair and Soleil Doux. I don't think that's how you say that. I don't know. But Soleil Clair is sort of a more rosy tone, and these are completely matte, by the way. And then this other one is more of a yellow tone, so I will swatch these side by side so you can really compare what kind of tones they have. I'd love to know in the comments if you found whether you like the more yellowy bronzers or more rosy bronzers, because I feel like besides bronzers that pull orange, aka more true warm tone bronzers, these other two tones are what's most common for other bronzer tones in the makeup world. These are so silky, so soft, definitely more of a light medium-ish type of pigmentation. So here's the slightly more rosy tone matte bronzer from SURRATT. And then we have this more yellow neutral tone. So there's the side by side. You can see that these definitely have more of a sheerness to them. By the way, if you're not sure whether you would suit like a more rosy tone or a more yellow tone, if you feel like you've tried, like every bronzer you've tried pulls really warm and really orange on you, you probably might have to go for these more cool toned, almost like blushy, rosy toned bronzer shades. You can almost try a more muted blush on as a bronzer and see if it suits you. And if they do, you'll probably be a good contender for these rosy tones. And if you feel like bronzers don't necessarily pull overly warm on you a lot, maybe you tried some that look pretty good on you, or maybe you just know you have olive skin, I think yellow tones are nice. Also, if you have a warm undertone, yellow tones are probably also a good way to go. If you're neutral toned, you could do this as well. The rosy tones, if you're cool toned as well, probably gonna be your go-to because it just mimics that cool rosiness that you already have in your skin tone. For me, I like both because I do have more of a cool olive skin tone. I can sort of venture into each category as long as they have this nice light pigmentation to them, like these SURRATT bronzers bronzers do. A great bronzer discovery for me this year was the Laura Geller Baked Bronze-N-Brighten in Fair. I believe I learned about this from someone who commented and recommended it, so thank you to whoever that person was. So this is a baked bronzer. The one thing is I feel like I've seen a lot of comments about people saying they've gotten this and maybe it pulled too dark. And the thing with these marbled baked products is that each one is different. So you could technically get one that has a lot more of those dark veins. I feel like there should be some consistency with it. I'm not exactly sure, but this one that I have is really beautiful. And this is like one of the most rosy, just beautiful, like it almost looks gray on my finger type of bronzers. It's such a unique, like very, very cool rosy toned color if you're just like everything is pulling orange, pulling warm, and you need to do a complete 360. I really do love this product, and it's a big product, so you get that sheen to it. Reminds me of sort of the RMS finish. I feel like the RMS ones look slightly less powdery than this does, but in moderation it still looks absolutely beautiful on the skin, and it has such a unique tone that, as you can see, we really haven't had one that is similar to this in terms of the actual cool rosiness that it has. It almost like a blush, but it has those like cool, like contoured sort of tones as well. Oh, by the way, another one that can be very pigmented, make sure you are applying this lightly. I always like to dust my brush into my hand as well before I apply, just to get any excess off. It's a really good tip. Be sure to use less with this one. And then if you feel like you can actually handle a little bit more warmth in your bronzer without pulling orange still, I really do like the Chantecaille. This is the Sunstone Real Bronze. I saw this and I was like, it's gonna pull orange on me, but I think what helps this product so much is it's this like baked gel formula, so it is a quite sheer formulation, and it definitely leans more yellow, and it has this like yellow tone, very, very fine shimmer in it. So this is such a beautiful one if I want to feel like very bronzy and glowy, and it has more of that traditional bronzer look to it. If that is something you're going for, you feel like maybe this is too rosy, these are too yellow, you still just want like a classic bronzer type of tone, this is more of a classic warm tone. Again, the shimmer is fine and beautiful, and it doesn't accentuate texture. Across the board, I really do love baked bronzers. They're usually more sheer, they have a really beautiful skin-like finish, so yeah, I definitely noticed that being a trend with my favorite bronzers. Let me know in the comments though if you found like a favorite kind of formula. For me, I always find like matte bronzers to be very pigmented, except for those SURRATT ones, so that's why most of these have a little bit of shimmer in them. They just apply beautifully. So I wanted to mention the Chantecaille one if you were curious, in case you want something slightly warmer, more beachy, but not orange. It's a good one. Last but not least, we have a brand spanking new launch from e.l.f. These are their bronzer and contours. I did pick up the two lightest shades. I like both of them. So this is definitely more of a contour shade. The other shade, if you want to watch my review video of them, I tried both of them on, has more of a bronzy like tone to it. But if you're just looking at all of these and you're like, still, I feel like they're not gonna work for me, maybe you just need something like this product. This is a liquid product, by the way. Can be sheared down. Let me show you what it looks like built up though. This, again, like I mentioned, has more of a contour vibe going on, but it's not so cool tone that if you were to put it all over your face. I actually have this one on below the RMS one for a little bit more like contour, but also color. And I don't feel like it pulls overly contour-ish, that you could totally use this as a bronzer. It is more pigmented, so I like using it in moderation with the LUXIE small contouring brush. It doesn't pull too gray, so it really is a versatile option. And it's called a bronzer slash contour, so you can really use it in whatever way you see fit. But if you're someone who's super cool toned and you just feel like you can't pull off any of these, then maybe you need to go very, very true cool toned and go with something like the e.l.f. liquid bronzer and contour. Good one. I just wanted to mention something that was super neutral, cool toned, and not like a bronzer at all, but in a good way. Those are my top 10 bronzers of 2024. Let me know in the comments below what other product category you may need help with, because I love doing these sort of swatch guides of my favorite products, especially with the year coming to an end. I'm gonna start doing these end of the year favorites to show you just the best of the best products that I discovered during 2024. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, and give this video a like if you did enjoy it. I'm also going to put another video on the screen here. Maybe I'll put my mega bronzer guide if you want even more recommendations. I will see you over here. Bye.